Pain woke me before my eyes did. A deep burning throb in my side, sharp enough to make me gasp. My vision cleared slowly, and the first thing I saw was a ceiling that was not a ceiling at all. It curved and pulsed with soft blue light, like I was lying inside the ribcage of some enormous glowing creature. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Straps held me down against a table that felt too smooth, too cold, too wrong. My heart pounded as the memories rushed back in pieces. The mining outpost, the alarms, the pirates who had boarded our transport ship with weapons I did not recognize. The moment something hit my side and the world went dark, a shape moved into view above me, and my breath caught in my throat. It was not human. Its skin had a faint translucent quality, like frosted glass, and beneath it I could see thin lines of color pulsing gently, almost like veins made of light. It had 4 eyes, 2 large ones facing forward and 2 smaller ones on the sides of its head, all blinking independently of each other. Its hands, if I could call them that, had 6 long fingers each, currently hovering over a floating display of glowing symbols. I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but the straps held me firmly in place. "Please remain calm," the creature said. Its voice came out slightly delayed, like it was being translated a second after the mouth moved. "You are safe. I am Dr. Vess. You were rescued from a hostile vessel 3 hours ago. Your injuries required immediate treatment." Rescued, not captured. I let that word sink in slowly, my heart still hammering, but the panic easing just slightly. "Where am I?" My voice came out cracked and dry. "You are aboard the medical research vessel Halvoran, under the protection of the Coalition fleet. Your transport was found adrift after an attack. We detected life signs and brought you aboard for emergency treatment." I looked down at my side. A thick bandage covered a wound that, judging by the pain, was not small. "My name is Daniel Ashford, and until 3 hours ago, the strangest thing that had ever happened to me was losing my luggage on a flight to Denver. Now I was lying on an alien medical table, being examined by a doctor with 4 eyes." "You have been through significant trauma," Dr. Vess continued, still studying the glowing display above me. "The wound was deep. We began preparing the nanite treatment protocol, but there was a delay in synthesis. I must apologize for that. In the meantime, I need to monitor your condition closely." I nodded, though I barely understood half of what he said. The pain in my side throbbed steadily, and I could feel warmth spreading from the wound, a kind of heat that seemed to build with every passing minute. Sweat started forming on my forehead. Dr. Vess's eyes suddenly narrowed, all 4 of them locking onto the display. "Your temperature is rising. 38.6, now 38.9. Is that bad?" I asked, though the way his voice shifted told me the answer already. "It should not be happening this quickly," he said, more to himself than to me. His long fingers moved rapidly across the display, pulling up more data. The wound site shows increased swelling, redness spreading outward. This is consistent with a rapid systemic response to infection. "So it's getting worse?" I tried to keep the fear out of my voice and failed completely. "I do not know yet," Vess admitted. "I have never observed a species respond this fast without intervention. Please, stay still." He pressed something against my arm, and a small device beeped as it drew a sample. His eyes widened, all 4 of them at once, which was a strange and slightly unsettling sight. "There is a massive increase in cellular activity at the wound site," he said, almost breathless. "Thousands of specialized cells converging on the area. They are consuming the foreign bacteria, actively, without any nanite assistance." I blinked at him, confused. "That's just what happens. Your body fights infections, right?" Vess turned to look at me directly, all 4 eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made me shift uncomfortably despite the straps. "No species I have ever treated can do this. Every patient I have worked with requires immediate nanite intervention the moment a wound is exposed to contaminants, or the infection spreads uncontrolled within hours and becomes fatal. Your body is doing this on its own." "I mean, yeah," I said slowly, unsure why this was such a big revelation. "It's called an immune system. Everybody has one." "Explain," Vess said, and for the first time, I noticed his voice had lost its clinical calm. There was something almost desperate in the way he leaned closer, like a student hearing about a miracle for the first time. I tried to remember my basic biology classes from high school, feeling strangely like I was back in 10th grade explaining a concept for a test. "Okay, so, when something harmful gets into your body, bacteria, viruses, whatever, your immune system detects it. White blood cells rush to the area to fight it off. That's why the wound is red and swollen. It means blood flow increased. The fever helps too, because it makes the environment harder for the bacteria to survive in." Vess stared at me in silence for a long moment. One of his side eyes twitched. You are telling me, he said slowly, that your body identifies a threat, mobilizes a defense force, and eliminates it, entirely without external medical assistance. Pretty much, yeah? And this happens automatically? Without conscious thought or control? I mean, I didn't do anything, I said, gesturing weakly at the straps holding my arms down. It just happens. Vess turned away from me abruptly and moved toward a panel on the wall, tapping out a rapid sequence of commands. A moment later, a soft chime rang out, and he spoke into what I assumed was some kind of communicator. This is Dr. Vess in Medbay 3. I need Dr. Rennell and Dr. Eulis here immediately. Bring the full diagnostic team. Is something wrong? I asked, my heart rate spiking again. No, Viges said, turning back to me, and for the first time since I woke up, I saw something that looked almost like excitement in his expression. Something is remarkably, impossibly right. Within minutes, the small medbay filled with more aliens, each of a slightly different appearance from Vess, though sharing the same translucent skin and multiple eyes. There was a taller one with a deep violet coloring who introduced herself, through the translator, as Dr. Rennell. Beside her stood a shorter, stockier alien named Eulis, whose eyes moved in constant nervous flicks around the room. They crowded around the display showing my vitals, speaking rapidly to each other in their own language, occasionally glancing back at me like I was some kind of exhibit. I felt exposed and a little embarrassed, lying there strapped to a table while a group of aliens debated my biology like I was a science project. Explain again, from the beginning, Renal said, her voice carrying more authority than Vess's had. You said this defense response occurs automatically in all members of your species? Yes, I said. It's not special. Every human has it. We call it an immune system. It's basically like an internal army that patrols your body and attacks anything that doesn't belong. Eulis made a strange clicking sound, which I would later learn was the equivalent of a gasp. An internal army. Constantly active, without maintenance, without external programming. I guess so, I said. I never really thought about it that way. Rennell leaned in closer, studying the readouts above me with an intensity that reminded me of watching my old chemistry teacher stare at a failed experiment, trying to understand where it had gone wrong, except in this case, everything was going impossibly right. The bacterial count at the wound site has dropped by 60% in the last 20 minutes, she said. This is not possible without intervention. No species in the known coalition territories possesses a biological defense mechanism of this scale and speed. What do other species do then? I asked, genuinely curious now, the fear slowly giving way to something closer to fascination. If you get hurt or sick, what happens? Ifes answered this time, his voice quieter. For most coalition species, any breach of the skin or exposure to foreign pathogens requires immediate medical treatment. Nanite injections, sterilization protocols, sometimes full quarantine. Without intervention, infections spread rapidly and are almost always fatal within a short period. Our bodies do not fight back the way yours does. We simply succumb, unless treated. The room fell quiet for a moment, and I found myself staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine a life where every scraped knee, every small cut, was a potential death sentence without a doctor nearby. That sounds terrifying, I said honestly. It is our reality, Rennell replied. It is why our medical facilities are so extensive, and why we developed advanced nanite technology centuries ago. Without it, our species would not have survived long enough to travel between stars. I thought about all the times I had gotten sick as a kid, fevers that came and went, cuts and scrapes from playing outside that healed on their own within days. I had never once thought of my body as remarkable. It was just what happened. You got hurt, and eventually, you got better. Wait, I said, a thought occurring to me. Does this mean humans don't really need your nanite treatments? My body is already handling it? Vfes and Rennell exchanged a look, communicating something through their multiple blinking eyes that I could not begin to interpret. That is precisely what we are trying to determine, Rennell said carefully. It appears your body is managing the infection independently. However, we would still recommend supportive treatment to ensure a full recovery and to prevent any complications. Complications like what? We do not yet know, Vezid admitted. This is entirely new to us. We have never had a patient whose body fights back on its own. I lay there, absorbing all of this, feeling a strange mix of pride and disbelief. My immune system, something I had never given a second thought to in my entire life, was apparently the most fascinating thing these advanced alien doctors had ever encountered. There's more, I said suddenly, remembering something from a health class years ago. It's not just about fighting infections after they happen. We can also prevent them in advance. All the eyes in the room turned toward me at once, and I felt a small thrill at having their complete attention. Explain, Reynolds said immediately. Vaccines, I said. When we're kids, doctors give us small doses of weakened or dead versions of diseases. It's not enough to make us really sick, but it's enough for our immune system to learn how to recognize and fight that disease. So if we're ever exposed to the real thing later in life, our body already knows how to beat it before it can do serious harm. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the soft hum of the machines around me. You are telling us, Euless said slowly, his voice trembling slightly, that your species deliberately introduces pathogens into your own bodies, on purpose, as children. Yeah, I said. It's normal for us. Most people don't even think twice about it. This is... Vess struggled for words, glancing at his colleagues. This is an act that would be considered deeply dangerous, almost reckless by any medical standard we know. Introducing a pathogen without immediate treatment ready is grounds for severe protocol violation on any coalition world. But it works, I said. We've basically wiped out diseases that used to kill millions of people, just by doing that. Diseases that used to be terrifying are barely a concern anymore because almost everyone gets vaccinated. Renal pressed her fingers against her temple, an oddly human gesture of stress that made me almost smile despite everything. Your species trains its own biological defenses in advance, using controlled exposure to the very things that would otherwise kill you, and this training persists for years afterward, protecting you long after the initial exposure. Sometimes for life, I said. Depends on the vaccine. Euless made that clicking gasp sound again, louder this time. This changes everything we understand about biological resilience. If this is a species-wide trait, and not simply unique to you, it's not unique to me, I said. Every human has this. It's just how our bodies work. We don't even really talk about it much because it's so normal to us. The three doctors began speaking rapidly among themselves again, their translated words overlapping into a confusing jumble that I gave up trying to follow. I caught fragments, phrases like species-wide immunity and unprecedented resilience and possible medical revolution, but most of it blurred together. I focused instead on my own body, on the wound at my side. The burning heat I had felt earlier had started to fade, replaced by a dull ache that felt more manageable. I glanced down and noticed, with some surprise, that the swelling around the bandage had visibly decreased. Dr. Vess, I said, interrupting the debate. I think it's getting better. He turned back to me immediately, running another scan. His 4 eyes widened again as he studied the results. The infection is nearly eliminated, he said, disbelief clear in his voice. Bacterial presence at the wound site has dropped to less than 5% of initial levels. This has taken less than 2 hours. Is that fast? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. For us, a comparable infection would require days of intensive nanite treatment and careful monitoring to reach this level of clearance, even with the most advanced technology we possess, Reynolds said, her voice hushed with something between awe and disbelief. Your body has done this using only its own internal mechanisms. I felt a strange sense of pride swell in my chest, even though I had done absolutely nothing except lie there and let my body do what it was designed to do. It was strange to think that something so ordinary to me, something I had never once appreciated, was being treated like a scientific marvel by beings who could travel between stars. Can I ask something? I said, and Vess's nodded for me to continue. Are there other humans nearby? From my ship? Vess's expression shifted slightly, and I felt my stomach tighten with worry. There were 4 other survivors from your transport vessel. They are currently in stable condition in a separate medical wing. None sustained injuries as severe as yours, but I would like your permission to compare their biological responses to what we have observed in you, if they are willing. Relief flooded through me at the news that others had survived. Yeah, of course. I'm sure they'd want to help if it means understanding this better. Reynolds stepped closer, her violet skin catching the soft blue light of the room. Daniel, I want to be direct with you. What we have witnessed today may represent one of the most significant medical discoveries in generations. If your species truly possesses this level of natural immune resilience across the board, it changes how we must think about human physiology entirely. It may also raise questions about human resilience in other areas we have not yet considered. Like what? I asked. Radiation exposure, environmental toxins, extreme temperatures, she listed. Species with weaker natural defenses often require significant technological support to survive conditions that might be merely uncomfortable for a species with strong natural resilience. We do not yet know the limits of what your body can withstand on its own. I thought about all the survival stories I had heard growing up, people surviving falls from great heights, extreme cold, days without food or water, injuries that should have been fatal. I had always thought of those as exceptional cases, remarkable stories of individual willpower and luck. Now, hearing Reynolds' words, I wondered if it was something deeper, something built into all of us that we simply took for granted. I don't know the answers to any of that, I admitted. I'm not a scientist, I just fix engines for a living. Vess made a sound that I eventually understood to be alien laughter, a soft clicking chuckle. You do not need to be a scientist, Daniel. Your body is already answering questions we have spent centuries trying to solve for our own species. The tension in the room had shifted entirely from clinical alarm to something closer to wonder. The doctors continued their scans and discussions, occasionally asking me questions about my life, about common illnesses I had experienced, about whether all humans reacted the same way I did. I answered as best I could, though I felt woefully unqualified to be representing my entire species in a conversation about biology. Hours passed, though it was hard to tell exactly how many, given the strange, timeless quality of the ship's lighting. Eventually, the straps holding me down were loosened, and I was allowed to sit up slowly, testing my strength. The wound at my side, though still tender, no longer burned with that same feverish heat. It looked cleaner, the swelling almost entirely gone. Vess approached me one final time, before I was moved to a recovery room to rest. Daniel, I want to thank you. What you have shown us today will be studied for years to come. It may change how the entire coalition approaches medicine, not just for your species, but potentially for ways we might help others improve their own resilience. I didn't really do anything, I said honestly. My body just did what it always does. That, Vess said, his 4 eyes blinking in what I now recognized as a kind of warm, respectful gesture, is precisely what makes it so extraordinary. You did nothing, and your body still won. As I was wheeled toward the recovery room, I caught a glimpse of Renal speaking urgently into a communicator, her words rapid and clearly important, though I could not understand most of what she said. I did catch one phrase before I was moved out of earshot, something that stuck with me long after that day. Update the Coalition threat assessment records. A species capable of this level of self-repair and self-defense should not be underestimated, regardless of their current level of technology. I lay back in the recovery bed a few minutes later, staring at the strange glowing ceiling above me, thinking about how strange it was that something as simple as a fever, something I had experienced dozens of times without a second thought, had left an entire alien medical team stunned into silence. Back home, nobody would have thought twice about it. A wound gets infected, your body fights it off, you get better. It was so common it was almost boring. But out here, among species who needed machines and chemicals just to survive a scraped knee, it was apparently something close to a miracle. I closed my eyes, feeling exhaustion finally catch up with me, and allowed myself a small, tired smile. Whatever happened next, whatever the Coalition decided to do with this information, one thing was clear. Humanity had brought something with us to the stars that nobody out here had ever expected. Not weapons, not technology, just the quiet, invisible war that every human body fought and won, every single day, without anyone ever having to think about it at all. And for the first time since waking up on that table, surrounded by strange lights and stranger faces, I did not feel afraid. I felt, oddly enough, proud to be human.